their home field advantages might be overrated. And I said this 2 weeks ago when A&M played Missouri.
Incorrect.
I don't think they are, but for some reason people think they are. They're only properly rated, if you want to say that, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, is if the energy and play on the field matches the atmosphere. If it doesn't, we have seen atmospheres, the wind get completely sucked out of them. Guys, this defense played out of their minds. Out of their minds. 6 sacks, 11 pass breakups, and 13 quarterback hurries in this game. Now, look, I don't think Ole Miss's offensive line is going to win the Joe Moore Award. But you guys, and we've talked about this off camera, this LSU defense had some massive concerns in terms of, do you have SEC-level talent in the front seven? Ralph's favorite player of all time plays middle linebacker for this team in Whit Weeks. He loves that man.
Oh, I was waiting for you to go someone else. Will heard it all night on Saturday night.
But seriously, Whit Weeks, 18 tackles in this football game, including a body slam of a sack on Jackson Dart to end the game in regulation. I say all this to say this defense played out of its mind. Garrett Nussmeier didn't really play a great game, but he was surgical when it mattered, obviously, in that final drive. And I think
completed 43% of his passes.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. And some of the decision-making, throwing off platform, like it was very weird. But I think there is something to say about you can play as bad as you did, and on that last drive, you're surgical. And that speaks to growth within a game. Gavin says this, Whit Weeks is what Tech fans want Kyle Eford to be. Well, he's got a younger brother over there if you want to go try to get him, but good luck with that.
Yeah,
all these things saying, guys.
There's already 2 LSU.
I put LSU in my playoff. I don't know if they're going to stick there. They very well could lose this upcoming weekend in Arkansas. I think that's very possible. But for one night and that atmosphere, unlike anything I've ever experienced, if you haven't seen the video already, you can head over, obviously, to my Twitter and, it was on the field and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was nuts. And Saturday Night Death Valley lives up to the billing. They put Ole Miss on the bubble. Jackson Dart tried to go Anakin Skywalker. I don't know if you guys saw that. Of, cloak over the head and just, brutalize. I mean, this is a game where Jackson Dart said post-game, I don't know how we lost it, and I don't even know how they lost it. This game should have been 21-0 Ole Miss in the first quarter. Trey Harris drops what would have been 6 points just immediately on that first drive. It's is that what you want, Gavin? You want that right there? Okay. Yeah. Guys, the environment's unreal. I think it played a massive factor. LSU played their butts off, but that crowd was loud, 102,000. And I will say this too, for anyone that doesn't think that there is a step up in terms of SEC in some Big Ten places everywhere else, you just don't get it. And I know people make fun of the it just means more type of thing. It really does. And there's just certain places, regardless of record, regardless of what's happened coming in there, it's going to be different. It's going to be louder. There's going to be more noise. There's going to, and just in terms of a program, there's going to be more money. There's going to be more opportunities, regardless if that team goes 4-8 this year over a team in a perceived lesser conference that goes 9-3 or 8-4. It is what it is. And LSU showed that. They flexed their muscles. We talk about, obviously, LSU winning. I want to get your guys' thoughts real quick on LSU because we're gonna cut this in 2 different segments. In fact, your thoughts on LSU. I was impressed. Defensively, they played out of their minds. Offensively, you got a lot of things you got to clean up. Lack of a run game. They didn't run the ball. They averaged 2.6 or 2.7 yards per carry in this contest. Maybe less than that.
3.5.
But your thoughts, Will. We'll start with you. LSU, they found a way, and they kept battling, and there's something to say about that in SEC play.
Yeah, they found a way. They played really poorly on offense, I think, as a unit.
Well, let me say this real quick. Ole Miss did come in averaging 4 sacks a game, and the offensive line did not allow a sack. The offensive line played, pass blocking-wise, played out of their mind. Everything else was kind of like, what the heck's going on?
I'm glad you said that because I watched the game, and I was still going to be accused of not watching football because I didn't think their offensive line was all that great. But I think that's baked into my brain, like what to expect. Like they've got 2 guys that come into the season at offensive tackle that we thought were going to be first-round picks. And I think they may have played their way out of the first round. they played like first rounders Saturday night, but for
Will's
most
going
of
to
the
get
year,
crucified for that, but that's going to be hilarious.
for the most
but
part of the year, they haven't been very good. You've said
Yeah.
it. A lot of games they have not been good.
Yeah, they've been shaky. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
still going to be taking. Will Campbell's going to be a top 10 pick just based off potential. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, well,
Dude.
that's what the NFL draft is. It's all about potential and traits. It's not so much what you do. It's
not about production.
nope, definitely not.
Yes. Anyway, sorry.
But the offense wasn't great. I mean, I think we talked on Wednesday about Ole Miss's secondary having a lot of issues, and it showed. I mean, 337 passing yards for LSU. That's all they could do. That's all LSU could do was throw the ball. Kyron Lacey. I mean, what a game! It continues at LSU. It's LSU is the current wide receiver U. The last 5 years, they are just churning out incredible wide receivers. Lacey only had 5 catches, 111 yards. Was nearly unguardable. I know it was only 5 catches, but they were explosive.
One
like
was
said,
to win the game.
Yeah. Most important one there at the end.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll split it up. So I don't want to get into Ole Miss yet, but a lot to be said for LSU to be able to find a way to win this game, because they offensively they didn't play like they should have won it. Their defense, like you said, was the best they played all year.
People in the press box who've been covering LSU longer than I have, they said that's the best defense performance they've arguably seen. Excuse me. Arguably that they've seen in 3 or 4 years, like pre-Bo Pelini in 2020, which was just a pitiful thing that people had to watch. Kyron Lacey's a dude. That guy is a dude. Wow. And nearly broke his leg. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like hyperextended his knee, and I was like, okay, he's done. Like he's done for the year. LSU was already 3 receivers down. But Ralph, they kept battling, and I know we talk about this a lot. The ability to just survive and advance is huge, because this felt like an early elimination game, really. I mean, LSU had 1 loss. Ole Miss has 2 losses. Maybe not all the way elimination. Crazy things can happen. We'll talk about it here in the next segment. LSU survives and now finds themselves with every single thing that they want, including a potential trip to Atlanta. As they're undefeated in SEC play right now. They have everything in front of them if they can go and capture it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I was very impressed by defense. Obviously, you mentioned Whit Weeks beginning of the show or beginning of this part. Huge game for him. I gotta give props to Ashton Stamps. That dude balled out on Saturday. 3 pass breakups. I mean, was not letting anyone on him.
Yeah, I'm
still on the same page though. If Major Burns steps on the field and plays defense anymore, it is horrible. It's like watching.
Yeah, that's like all I can remember about LSU playing defense. Ralph and I watched this game together. And all I can remember is Ralph just talking about how bad Major Burns was, and Major Burns was having a rough night.
Look, he also this, and Bryce pointed this out to me when I first started watching LSU more and more with him. Major Burns is a good tackler. He can blitz. Yeah, he can blitz. He's going to blitz.
He's great when you eliminate the amount of yards between him and the ball. He needs to play close up to the line of scrimmage. That's
right. In coverage, it is horrible. Trey Harris proved that by mossing on him in the end zone.
That was
on his head.
Catch.
That was humiliating for him.
Yeah.
But the fact is that you look at his stats, you're like, wow, why is Ralph saying that? Because he had a good game. 8 tackles, 4 solos, a sack and a half, 2.5 tackles for a loss, quarterback hurry, a 4 fumble. You're like, why are you saying that he played bad? Go watch him in coverage. He's awful. But for them to overcome that with him, because they have Whit Weeks, who played out of his mind. He's crazy. He's a psychopath. I thought the D-line played a great job. Braden Swenson, man. Guys,
he legitimately might be an All-American candidate at this point.
Yeah.
We're talking 7 sacks already this season.
Him and is it Savion Jones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Savion Jones. Those two out of their minds. Played great games. I mean, you don't have to look at the stats. Just watch the game. Watch how they perform. Watch what they forced Jackson Dart to do. Him make him scramble, run more. He got knocked around running the ball. And so I think it's just up for the front 7, man. They played out of their mind. Ashton Stamps had a great game, and I was just impressed the whole entire time, because I was saying, well, Ole Miss is eventually just going to break it out and start to sling it on them. I really did, and I thought Jackson Dart was just on. I mean, they had that touchdown. It was to Trey Harris. It was in his hands. It hit off his leg. I mean, that was he was taking that to the house. I mean, by
Easy.
far, he had everyone beat. And after that, they just didn't get beat over the top anymore because they create such a great pass rush. They got Jackson Dart uncomfortable early in the game. They hit him. That's the one thing I do. Some of these quarterbacks like him, you hit him early in the game, he's not going to be running around as much. And he tried to run around and got knocked around.
Yeah, no, you're right. Also want to shout out Zy Alexander. PFF posted that he allowed like 26 yards total on guys that covered him, and and that's a kid that's an FCS transfer, by the way. Tore his ACL last year and has played a total of, I think, of 6 games at the FBS level. And so these guys played well above. Will, we've talked about this, and I think it's a reason you weren't high on Missouri. I think this is the Blake Baker effect. I think this guy, and I told a lot of people in the press box, when this guy gets some dudes in, and they've got the number 2 or 3 ranked recruiting class, I don't know where it is in per 24/7 Sports, but it's one of the top 4 classes or top 5 classes, I believe. And they've got some dudes coming in. When he stacks some classes, Bo Davis stacks some classes on the defensive line. I mean, I think that's a reason for LSU fans to be excited. If he's doing it with this, and it's not a knock on the guys that he has, but when he's doing the guys that really are LSU football players and LSU type of players, I think that's when you could start to see maybe the LSU defense of the 2010s and late 2000s that we saw with those great defenses. That's when you could start to see those guys come back. Because you've mentioned Blake Baker leaving Missouri was a reason you weren't as high on him, I think, as I was. And now we're seeing that effect kind of at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Baker's doing an incredible job. He should be a Burroughs Award, maybe not finalist, but he needs to be in the discussion for sure. He's done a really, really great job of scheming that defense. I always say it's not about the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and Joes. Sometimes it is the X's and O's. I mean, and Blake Baker's had to do that this year.
Yeah.
But LSU, they made a lot of timely plays on defense
to
win them this game. Whit Weeks, we already talked about how great he was. If that targeting stood, LSU does not win that game. Does not win the game.